Good afternoon, friends. How are you today? Hello, and welcome to Meet Me Monday. I am Karma with Lewis Acre Farm, and I am so happy that you're here today. This is a very special day for me. First of all, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your Labor Day with me and with my family. This is very special, a very important topic for me. Today we are going to talk about autism and the effects that it's had on our family. I have a son who is 33. Welcome in Travels and Gardening with DJ. I'm so happy you're here. Oh, there I am. Autism has a family. Is 33. And I was a single mom. I raised him by myself. That would be my husband playing games while I'm trying to do a live.
I'm sorry. I won't do it anymore.
Welcome in, Watt Life. I'm so happy you're here. Those of you who are in the background, I really appreciate you being here as well. I know not everybody is comfortable chatting, and that's okay. I understand. Sometimes I do go into lives and choose not to participate in the chat, and that's okay. But we're here to talk about autism and how it has affected our family. I want people to know that autism has a lot of different presentations. I raised my son alone, and I knew as his mom that there was something that was not right. And I couldn't get anybody to listen to me. And it was very disheartening as a parent. I was always told that I was just a doting mom. And it was so much deeper than that. And to be told that, oh, you're just a doting mom, it messes with your mind. And it hurts your heart because you see your child struggling. And you see them hurting, and you can't do anything about it. And you can't get anybody to listen. And you have hopes and you have dreams for your child. And you see those dreams and those hopes falling away. Now, I want to clarify that autism has so many, it's like a prism. When you have a prism and it hits the light, Honey, would you please go give me some tissue? Thank you. Thought I was prepared and I wasn't. I forgot to grab the tissues. When you have a prism and it hits the light, you see so many different facets to the prism. You see the rainbow colors and you see different cuts in the prism. And that's autism. There are so many different facets to it. It's really unique, and every person with autism spectrum disorders is so unique. You cannot compare them. They have so many different traits that are the same or similar, but yet they are so different. So when you hear the word autism, you can't lump them into the same group because each one is so unique. Thank you, sweetie. They are so unique and so special in their own right. And you never want to lump them into the same group and think that they're all the same. So as a parent, it's very difficult to get that diagnosis. But even before the diagnosis, you know something's wrong. And using the term wrong is even a misnomer, because your child is so special and so unique that you see the things that are that make them unique and special, but yet you see their struggles. And I'm seeing double in my guest box down here. Anyway, different levels. There you have profound autism where they're nonverbal, and some are very, very quote unquote helpless. Now I have triple. But then you have ones like my husband and my son, who are very high function. There, okay. There's different levels of autism, and every one of them are so unique. But I want to introduce you to my son first, because my journey with autism began with him in 1991. And oh, well, there he is. Okay. So let me introduce you to my son, Ronson. And here he is. Oh,
hi.
Okay. This is Ronson, and he has a channel called CyberGuy91. He's had that channel for a long time, and he does a lot of gaming and tech stuff on his channel. Just now kind of considering maybe building it up a little bit. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much of anything on there right now, but
You want to talk a little bit about the things that you do that you're thinking about putting on your channel?
Um, Mostly just electronics projects, electronics repair, some gaming, video gaming, that type of thing.
What kind of video games do you like to play?
I like to play a lot of different video games. I like first-person shooters. I like story-based games. I like adventure games. I like racing games. Pretty much any kind of game I'll give a shot.
Okay. I know that there's a couple of games that you spend a lot of time on. One of them is Destiny, right?
Right, Destiny 2.
Okay, and then for a while anyway, you were doing Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, I don't own any of the real recent Call of Duties, though.
Okay.
They're just,
Um,
each year they're pretty much the same, and it's another $60 for them, so.
all right. Let's see. Okay. So we kind of did a little bit of a run through what I wanted to talk to you about today. We did that last night so that you would be prepared. I know that you were
Right.
pretty nervous about doing this. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it is, or what it has been like for you, starting out as a child with autism, and not knowing that you had autism, going through school, being around other children. What was that like for you before you got your diagnosis?
I mean, it was tough at times, but I mean, I didn't know there was anything wrong per se, and so I don't know. I was just used to it, I guess.
Okay. Did you find it difficult to play with other children? Like when we would be at gatherings or be around, welcome in, Maritza. I'm glad you're here. When we would be like at church and there were other children, or when you were at school and you had to be in a classroom and with your peers, was it difficult for you to interact with your peers?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'd much rather do projects alone than try and. I hated group projects for
Okay.
various reasons, but
What kinds of things happened, or how did it make you feel when you were put into a position where you had to interact with the other kids? What would happen?
a lot of times I would just shut down. I wouldn't participate, or participate like the bare minimum.
Okay. All right. Now we talked a little bit last night when we were going over this for today. In fourth grade, you started going to school. You were in a private school, and then you had to go to public school again. And in fourth grade, you had an incident on the playground before school with a little first grade girl.
Oh, I think it
Can you
was
tell
fifth
us a little
grade
bit about
actually,
that?
but
Well, fourth or fifth grade, whichever one it
yeah.
was.
I honestly
What
don't
happened
really
with that little?
remember. I honestly don't really remember what she had been doing to me. I just remember there was this younger girl that had been pestering me, and I just wanted her to leave me alone. I kept saying that, and she wouldn't. And I was grew up around cats, so I was thinking, a cat, you go, but a human's not gonna really react to that. And for some reason, I had been working on a project and had a screwdriver in my backpack, and so I grabbed hold of that and started running towards her with it, hoping that she'd, run away and leave me alone. I had no intentions of hurting her, but just wanted her to leave me alone. And then I ended up getting suspended because of it,
Right.
which
And
wasn't really fair.
well, no. Yes and no. I mean, you definitely needed to be corrected, but the suspension wasn't necessarily just for chasing the little girl with the screwdriver. Part of the suspension came because when I got called in from work to come to the school, you were worked up by that time. You were having a bit of a meltdown. And at this time, we did not know that you had autism or that you had ADHD. And you didn't know how to communicate to us that the little girl had been taunting you and harassing you and wouldn't leave you alone, and that you were just trying to get her to stop.
Right.
And you became so extremely flustered and frustrated that you jumped out of your chair and charged the principal with your fists raised and was beating on the chair and the table at him. You didn't ever hit him,
No, I
but you
wouldn't
did
have.
attack the principal. No, and you wouldn't have, and I know that. But
I was
because you
just so
charged
upset
the
that I was
principal,
being disciplined because, like, she was the one that needed to leave me alone, So,
right, right. So there's a lot of miscommunication that happens because in an autistic mind, everything is concrete. Everything is pretty much black and white. Is that fair to say?
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was one of the first incidents that happened. But then you also had a lot of physical problems that were happening, that compounded your social problems, because you
Right.
ended up having to have a lot of surgery.
Definitely by 5th or 6th
ahead.
grade.
Right. Missing a lot of school because of having to have surgeries and not being able to be actively involved with your classmates really affects any social development that you might have benefited from being there with your peers.
Right.
Also, it was an extremely small school.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't start out in kindergarten with these kids, you had a hard time getting into their groups.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think the largest number we had in our class at any one point was 30, maybe 31, 32 at the very most, and that was maybe a year. I think it was less than a year because there were some kids that left, like moved states or whatever.
right.
I
And
think we were as
so,
small as like 22 at one point.
yeah, I think you're right. Now, the teachers were pretty good about accommodating you,
Mhm.
as far as making sure you got your schoolwork and on all of that. But when you can't actually be there in class, or you can't participate in activities once you do come back to school, you kind of get left behind, even if you want to
Mhm.
participate.
Right, and the schoolwork is harder
Another
too
incident
because
that we talked about happened in, yeah, go
the
ahead.
schoolwork is harder too because unlike nowadays where there's a lot of like traditional schools that have online curriculum or whatever, like the schoolwork I was doing was curriculum that was designed to be done in school with a teacher in front of you. So it made it harder.
Right,
And it
right.
wasn't where they are now where you can just video call or whatever your teacher and they help you out, you know.
Yeah. And since you had so many physical issues, and it being such a small school, everybody in your school pretty much was expected to participate in sports.
Right.
And you couldn't participate even if you wanted to participate. So that puts you at another disadvantage.
Mhm.
Um, so when it came time for PE, most of the time you had to sit out. And that was another reason for them to pick at you.
Right.
So tell us about the incident that happened in 7th grade out on the football field.
Um there was a group of classmates that so it was a small school and we excuse me, it was a small school and we had to walk across the street to get to the football field where we would run laps when the weather was nice enough. And we had gone over there and some students found some baling twine, like the orange twine they tie hay bales with, and they got a hold of it and strung it across and started running circles around me and tied me up with baling twine. And the baling twine was so knotted up and tight that I couldn't really move. And it was in a spot where the rest of the class and the gym teacher couldn't see or hear, and so I was stuck there for a while until the PE teacher finally figured out what was going on and came over, and then it was tied up so bad that they had to go get some scissors to cut me free. So
Yeah. And when I found out about it, I raised Cain at the school. But because you were out of district and they were already kind of getting tired of having to write your 504s and accommodate you, and you weren't contributing to their sports teams and everything else, it was very political. Um, they didn't really want to do a whole lot, and I kept pushing the issue. Had I known then what I learned later, I would have pressed charges against the boys that did it to you.
Right.
They ended up firing the coach at the end of the school year, only to rehire him a few weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, what was the point? And there were other little things that happened at that school. With all of the issues that you had there, what were some of the things that ended up happening as a result, emotionally, for you? Like, did you end up with suffering with a lot of depression, anxiety, missing a lot of school?
Yeah. I don't know if that was a direct result of school, but
it contributed.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, when you have depression and or anxiety, like every little thing that's not neutral or positive, can contribute. So
Right. So, and plus, when you have kids that are torturing you at school, hey, it's not a place that you want to be.
no.
And for the most part, you had some pretty good teachers, but there were a few teachers that were not exactly the best.
Yeah.
And they made schooling very difficult for you.
Yeah, like Mr. Look in the book, it's in the book, Crace.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You had a few of those who were just sailing through to retirement. But
and that one principal.
I don't even remember him.
It was the one that was principal, I believe, when I got tied up.
Oh, yes.
He was coasting through his tenure, like couldn't be fired kind of thing. And so he was just didn't do much of anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So eventually they kind of put it to us that either you had to start going to school full time or you had to go somewhere else. They weren't going to accommodate us anymore, which was their right because you were out of district. They did not have to accept you as a student.
Right.
Welcome in, Shades of Gray. I'm so glad you're here. Let's see. Our Louisiana Life, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, this is so true. It's hard when schools are designed for one way of learning and an individual needs to learn a different way than most. That is so, so true. And, they did accommodate for the most part. They tried to help until they got tired of trying. They were.
And it also didn't help that they were a small school district with limited resources.
Right. Yeah.
So.
They were very limited. They were really upset when they had to provide a tutor for you. They finally found one and provided a tutor, but they weren't happy about it, and the tutor wasn't happy either, which made the whole situation unpleasant for everybody.
Right.
But anyway, So fast forwarding, we ended up removing you out of the Notice School District, and we transitioned you into an online high school. And how did that work out for you?
I mean, at the beginning, it was really good. Like I was saying before, traditional schools are designed to be done in a classroom. The curriculum is designed to be done in a classroom, and this was actually geared towards doing, on your own, learning on your own. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was definitely good at the beginning. Um, Now, there definitely were challenges. Like, we didn't have internet access at the time. Or, well, we did. We did for a short period of time, but it was dial up, and it was the internet was you know, beginning to grow to the point where dial up didn't quite cut it for some of the stuff I needed to do. And
Right.
so I would have to go to coffee shops or other places with free Wi-Fi with a laptop and sit and do my schoolwork for hours.
Hours at McDonald's. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
They got to know us.
back when you had to have those coupon codes to connect to their Wi-Fi.
Right. But I will say that the McDonald's in Caldwell was so gracious to us. They found out what we were doing, and they would provide us with coupon after coupon after coupon so that you could do your schoolwork. And they didn't kick us out after 7 hours of sitting there doing homework.
No.
And they gave us refill after refill on our coffee and so that we could sit there and do homework. So, I mean, they were very good to us. And so was the donut shop and
and Living Waters, the Christian bookstore / coffee shop.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to know a lot of different businesses that offered free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But it meant a lot of late nights and still having to go to work the next morning. But so what about transitioning into adulthood? Now, we talked a little bit last night about how it got to a point where eventually you just couldn't catch up, and we pulled you out of school. You went and dropped out. And so you kind of felt like you could just coast. You knew that I was disabled by this time, and you felt like I needed you. I would never kick you out. You were set. You didn't have to do anything. Was kind of the mentality that was coming across to me. And you were kind of angry at that point. You were around 19 and angry at life, I guess. I'm not real sure. Starting to rebel. And I ended up having to kick you out. And we found you, went through a series of steps to find you a really good certified family home to transition into. And you eventually moved into New Plymouth. I know there were steps in between, but you moved to New Plymouth into a family home. And that was a really good step for you. But how was that period of time for you when Mama said, no more, you're moving out?
I mean, at the time, obviously, I was upset about it and hurt, I guess, but I don't know. I think living in New Plymouth, there in the certified family home, was a great transitional step to living on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of hurt there, I know. And it took us a while to bridge that. But it ended up being the best thing that ever happened for our relationship, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Ken, I'm so glad that you're here. Well, I'm really happy that you're here with us today. So at New Plymouth, you had certain sets of rules that you were supposed to follow, and eventually you stopped following the rules, and you were told that if you didn't follow the rules, you would have to leave. You would have to move out. And so you ended up having to leave that family home as well. But they were really good, and they helped you find an apartment in Emmett.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a couple of roommates there. And so you weren't totally living alone, but you were on your own again. Or the
Right.
first time, I guess, living on your own. And you started, well, you weren't starting. You had already started receiving services when you were living with me. But you started receiving, not supported living, but you started receiving community-based services there in Emmett with an agency. And you got in with a group of people who eventually started convincing you that I was just trying to rule your life and trying to control you. And there was a bit of a break between us again. And you kind of went off on your own track, started rebelling, doing things that you knew that I wouldn't approve of, which that was life to live, even if it wasn't something I approved of. But when it came down to it, and you ended up out of that apartment into another apartment in the same complex with your roommate, your best friend.
Right.
And what happened with that apartment?
Well, my friend, he's also got some disabilities, and it got to the point after a couple of years that he didn't want to be living away from his mother because his mother spoils him, we'll just say. And
Right.
well, that, and they had some dogs, and he liked being around his dogs, which were at his mother's house. So,
Right.
and I wasn't sure that I wanted to find other roommates. And then on top of that, the rent kept going higher and higher and higher, and I couldn't afford it by myself. So I eventually had to move out at the end of our lease.
Right. And these people that had you convinced I was controlling you had promised that they would help you find a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't help you at all. They just kept putting you off. And then it got down to 1 month left on your lease, and you had nowhere to go.
Oh, they half-assed it at the very end, but that was about it.
And they promised they'd help you move.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was still very, very crippled. I couldn't do very much at all. But I'm the one that ended up coming over almost every day for a month to help you pack, clean, and move. We moved your entire place almost in my minivan until the last week, and then Grandpa paid for a moving van to help you move.
Right.
But you ended up moving back in with us, right? For about 2 to 3 years. And then you finally found the apartment that you're in now. And you've been there now, you're starting on you're working on your 4th year there. And you live alone, right?
Right.
And how is that going for you?
It's going pretty well. I really enjoy living alone. I do deal with feeling loneliness more because, I'm the only one living here, but it's been great. I like it. It's income based, so I can afford it, and it's really nice.
Yeah. So you recently did something, though, to help alleviate your loneliness. And what was that you did to help alleviate your loneliness?
I adopted a young kitty from the shelter.
And what's her name?
Kiwi.
She is so, so sweet. She is a little
She
ham.
is. Yeah.
How has that been since you adopted her? Has it helped?
I think so. Yeah.
Good, good. So how has autism affected you as an adult?
Um, it's really difficult to make friends. Um, the anxiety, prevents me from initiating contact with other people to make friends, and so I have almost no friends, which is tough. I think things would be easier or better. Life would just be better if I had more friends, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes it really
As a
difficult
mom,
to get certain things done.
yeah. As a mom, that worries me because eventually I won't be here for you. And knowing that you don't have those supports in place, you don't have friends, and we don't have family to step in and take the place of me.
No,
That hurts my
no,
heart.
we've lost a lot of our family, and some of them have abandoned us, and
Yeah,
you know, we're a small family to start out with, and then, you know,
right. Oh, what about phone calls and taking care of your personal business, like credit cards or doctor's appointments and things like that you need to do?
some of it's pretty easy for me. Phone calls are not. I don't like talking on the phone. There's sometimes I don't even like talking to family on the phone. Like, I don't enjoy being on the phone. It gives me a lot of anxiety. Um, a lot of times I'll sit there and know I need to make a phone call and just get more and more anxious about it and work myself up, and you know, it's
Yeah.
it really sucks. Now, if it's something I can do online or through an email or a text or something, I think I'm pretty good at getting it done. I don't mind doing that.
I'm going to ask you just a couple more questions, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk to Logan for a few minutes.
Okay.
And then I'm going to talk to the two of you together. But we talked about last night a condition or an effect, I'm not even sure what to call it, about object permanence. Can you explain what that is and how it affects you?
Yeah, so it's kind of almost like racehorses. They have blinders on, so they can't see
Mhm.
like what's over here or what's over here. They just see like there, and that's how it is for me a lot. Like if it's not something in my immediate vicinity, uh, or in my immediate like time frame, like yesterday, today, tomorrow, sort of thing. It's almost like it doesn't exist. It's
Right.
and it's not that there's lots of things that I care about, that I love, that
Like grandpa?
um right, and it's people too. It's people and things. Um there's lots of things that I love that are outside of my little bubble that I perceive as existing. But when they're not within my bubble, they're not people or places or things that I see, interact with, on a frequent basis. It's almost like they don't exist.
Right. I bring up grandpa because you and grandpa, which is my dad, you two were bosom buddies when he lived here. You guys were very, very, very close. And
Hmm.
once grandma passed and he moved away, it's almost like you guys are still very close when you're together. But once he moved away, it's almost as if he ceased to exist. But your love for him has never changed.
No.
And it's hard for people to understand how that can be. But it's like you were saying, it's like those blinders. It's not tunnel vision, but it's just because he's not right here in your presence where it's a regular, consistent reminder that is there and a part of your life.
Right. Well, and with him, it also doesn't help that he's not a huge phone person either. Like
Right,
phone call person. And he does text and email, but not much. He doesn't
right,
love doing it. He does it, but so that
yeah,
doesn't help either.
right.
And I give him a call and it's like, oh, well, how's the weather down there in California? Oh, it's been this, it's been that. Oh, we're going to go
Yeah,
to
he's not
Arizona.
a great
Oh, okay.
communicator.
Well, I guess I'll let you go. you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah,
that's as
he's not
much
the best
my
communicator.
problem. That's as much my issue as it is his. So,
Yeah,
like, then the two of us together, there's quite a communication breakdown there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the other question that I wanted to ask you, that I'm sure you get a lot, and I'm sure that the audience is wondering, is how do you fill your days? Um, we know that you deal with a lot of anxiety and that you have difficulty with um, talking on the phone and social and such. So how do you fill your days?
um, I receive community-based support. I have an employee that comes in uh, during the week every day that helps me out with things, helps me make sure I get things done that I need to get done, helps push me to get out and sort of socialize. Um, Also provides transportation. I don't drive. I don't have a driver's license, so helps me get to the store, get to doctor's appointments, get to my mom's house to visit, pretty much wherever I need to go.
Right. Right. Okay. And what are your goals, your hopes, and dreams for the future?
Um, well, right now I'm hoping to get more into electronics repair. I there's a lot of really great YouTubers that I've been watching. There's a great repair, like YouTube repair community out there, and um, I'd really like to get into electronic repair and maybe even make videos about it.
I think that's
Just
awesome.
there's so much. I know very 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 little, and there's so
And
much
yet
to
you're
learn.
and yet you are so
And
intelligent when it comes to electronics. I am just blown away.
I mean, there's one of the YouTubers I watch that literally, what was it, 2019? It might have been when the pandemic happened. Uh, he knew pretty much nothing about repairing things, and now he repairs things and like makes multiple videos a week. He repairs PlayStation 5s, Nintendo Switches, just anything, and does micro soldering, and and he didn't go to school for
Something
that. He just taught
self-taught.
himself. So that's 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 one of the main things I'd like to do. And if I'm get to be proficient enough in it, it'd be nice to be able to purchase broken things, fix them, and then sell them for a little bit of extra income.
I
So,
think that's a very commendable goal. And I know you can
and
do it. You've got the intelligence to do it.
right, and
So,
I really support not contributing more e-waste. There's so many
yeah,
electronics, and when I say electronics, that could mean a toaster. I mean, that could mean a vacuum cleaner, or it could mean like a Nintendo Switch or something more
yeah,
computery. But, not, there's so many of those that just get thrown into the garbage and then they pile up and they don't break down. And when it's, I've watched some of the repair videos on a Nintendo Switch. The only thing wrong with it was a 10-cent resistor that needed to be replaced, and it was perfectly good. So I think that's just great if more people out there can repair their things and keep them out of the landfill.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put you down in the basement, and I'm going to go ahead and talk to Logan for a little bit about his experience with autism. And then I'm going to
No,
bring
not
you
the
back up.
basement.
Yes, you can go down in the basement and eat all the snacks I prepared.
Okay.
Okay, I'll bring you back up here in a little bit.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for popping in here today. Position this here. I get it so that Logan can be seen too. There we go.
There we are.
I will have a period of time at the end if everybody can stick around where you guys can ask some questions of my guys. This is my sweetheart, the love of my life. This is Logan.
Howdy, howdy.
And he does have a channel, but he has not put any content on there. I hope that someday he will feel confident enough to do something. But at this point, he wants to, but he hasn't. So, Logan,
Yes, ma'am.
You have gone your entire life not knowing that you were autistic,
Right.
but knowing that you had something wrong.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about what your childhood was like growing up, knowing that you had something different from everybody else, but not knowing what.
Well, I just stayed around pretty much by myself. I wasn't social at all, hardly. And growing up on the farm helped me to hide, I guess. Well, I wasn't necessarily hiding, but I found out now that I really was. And I stayed with Grandma and Grandpa an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
Dad always said it ruined the family because I did that, but it was something else besides that. But anyway, yeah, knowing that I had something, I always knew something was wrong, and we tried to, Mom and Dad, I guess, tried to get help for me, but just didn't know what we were facing.
Well, one of the things is that you and I were born in 71.
Yep.
In the 70s, autism wasn't a thing.
No.
They just didn't know what autism was. They didn't know how to test for it.
Right.
Children were often, if they were profoundly autistic, they were just labeled, and please excuse me for using the term, but they were labeled as retarded.
Right.
And that wasn't the case at all. Now, Logan has a whole lot. He's a very complex case. He was born with some congenital defects. He was born blind in the left eye, and he also was born with a cataract in the left eye.
Glaucoma.
And he was born with glaucoma. How old were you when you had your cataract removed?
Probably 13.
No,
I was younger than that.
You were 10, weren't you?
10, I believe.
And they did not put a lens in your eye like they normally would for removing a cataract.
No.
And why did they not put a lens in your eye? Do you remember what Dr. Jensen has said?
I think I was still growing at that time. The eye was still trying to grow, and something I don't exactly remember, but it was.
It's because the eye was still developing and growing. And so they don't put a lens in a child's eye when they remove the cataract. If they did, it could cause damage. So you've gone your whole life seeing nothing but what? Blurry and shadows, right?
Yep. I can see colors. I can see shapes. It's just a blur. It's like an unfocused camera lens. But I've been one-eyed my whole life. I mean, it just.
And how does that affect you when you go to do projects, or when you go to drive, or?
It used to bother me a lot, but I've gotten so used to it now that it just. And no, I didn't like to drive when I was. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I didn't like to drive when I was a teenager. I'm one of them that. Yeah, don't make me drive, but I'm glad that Mom and Dad did. They took it slow and easy, and I learned to drive, and I'm glad they did, because it was just, I'm a slow learner. I've always been that way. Always had trouble, and But my eyes, you know, I'm so used to it now, seeing the world one-eyed. That
It affects your depth perception too.
Yes, my depth perception is very bad. Yes.
One of the things that I notice when you're doing projects, you use a drill or you're hammering nails or whatever. You try to put something in straight, and you go to put the drill on, and it goes in at an angle. Everything is angled. No matter how hard you try to put it in straight, it goes in at an angle.
Right.
And that all goes back to your depth perception.
Depth perception, yes.
Now, when we work on a project together, if at all possible, I will help you guide your drill and get it upright and straight,
right,
and everything, and it does better.
Yeah, it helps.
But that is one thing that you have a lot of trouble with. Now, when you were around 5 years old, maybe 6, excuse me, your mom and dad took you to a neurologist, or not a neurologist, a neuropsych clinic in Springfield, Missouri. And they did do some limited testing. We actually have a copy of that paperwork.
Yes.
And it did show some learning difficulties, but they couldn't identify what they were.
Right.
They did test you, and they did show a low IQ, which does not affect how I perceive you one way or another. I fell in love with the person. I didn't fall in love with your IQ. I didn't fall in love with anything else but the person, Logan.
Yeah.
The personality, the interests,
right,
who you are is what I fell in love with. And a lot of people I wouldn't say a lot of people, there have been people who know your diagnoses, who have asked me why I would want to be with you.
Yeah.
And I tell them, because I love who you are.
Yeah.
Your diagnoses do not affect who you are.
Right.
They're not who you are.
Right.
A low IQ, autism, glaucoma, ADHD, schizoaffective disorder. Those are not who you are. Those are what you have.
Yep. That's only part of it.
And I fell in love with what's inside. I didn't fall in love with anything else besides that.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, when we fell in love back in high school, I didn't even know that you were in special ed. I didn't even know that until I met back up with you in Missouri in 2011. That's when I found out that you had even been in special ed.
Surprise.
So, you know, that's testament to the fact that I fell in love with the person.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be some great savior or anything, you know. So if anybody had any questions about me trying to be a great savior of Logan, put that out of your mind right now, because I fell in love with him before I ever even knew there were any issues or problems. But so you went through your entire life knowing you were different. What have been some of your biggest struggles in life?
Well, being social, really, that's a big issue.
Okay.
I didn't really have any friends. I was always picked on in school. That made it worse. And something we've left out here, I don't know when to bring it up now or even mention it, but I was ran over when I was 6.
Yes, that's
and
right.
I'm dealing with severe head trauma too, and not just so it plays a major factor in this.
Yes, that's right. You were run over when you were 6.
It was purely accidental.
Yes, it was. Very traumatic experience for the whole family.
Yes. I'm lucky to be here because of it, but we won't go into all the details here.
Right.
Unless somebody really wants to. But,
well, we don't need to mention the whole thing.
But me struggling, it's always been making friends. My jobs has always been hard. It got hard on me to keep a job.
Getting a job and keeping a job has been a very big factor.
The following instructions, I can do this. To an extent, I can do that. I can follow basic instructions. It's just, and if something's timed on a timed basis, I just can't do it. I feel like I'm rushed and I'll just freeze up and I freak. So, but
now following instructions, yes, you can
to a point.
To a point.
Yes.
But it's got to be very, very, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 or 2 steps.
Yeah.
Anything more than a couple of steps, and you won't.
I freeze, and if there's something about it, it just comes out of nowhere. I just freeze.
How about change?
Depends on what kind of change it is. But most times the changes have been hard on me my whole life to do that. It's not an easy thing to change over, but I can do it if necessary. I mean, if it's a necessity change, if it needs to change, I'll change, but it's going to take time and effort for me to do it.
So if we had plans today to look, for example, if we were planning today to run up to the honey store and this live ran too long and we ran out of time and plans got changed to go Friday instead, how would that affect you?
No, I could do it. I mean, it don't...
But would it make you upset that the plans got changed?
No, not necessarily upset. It would just be, if I really wanted to do it that day, it would kind of, well, all right, I'll put it off, don't really want to, but let's do it.
Okay.
So,
if we had been planning for 3 weeks
mm-hmm.
to go down to your mom's, which, by the way, his mom lives about 2 hours from us. If we were planning to go to your mom's and we were going to spend 3 days,
mm-hmm.
and it's 4 days before we're supposed to leave, and all of a sudden something came up, maybe we were short of money and we couldn't go,
mm-hmm.
or we were going to have to postpone it for another 3 weeks.
Yeah, that would be hard.
How would you do with that?
Don't really know how to explain it, but it would be tough. Because I always like going down to mom's,
right.
when we can. It would be tough on me because I'm close to mom now, and I wasn't when I was a kid. Mom and I struggled with each other. Seemed like we were at each other's throats more 9 times out of 10. And me and my dad didn't get along at all.
You still don't?
No, I don't even talk to my biological dad anymore.
No.
We just drifted apart.
Well, there's a lot. There's a
lot
there.
Going on. Yes.
There's a lot. His biological dad can't accept the fact that any child of his could possibly have anything wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing wrong with a child of his.
Mm-mm.
So therefore, Logan couldn't possibly be his.
No.
However, put a side-by-side picture of Logan and his dad, and they are spitting images of each other.
Oh, yeah.
There's no denying. I know exactly what Logan is going to look like when he reaches the same age of his dad.
Right.
There's no denying they could be twins.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another time. So you have had a really hard time holding jobs.
Yeah.
What has been the problem with jobs? Has it been getting a job?
Hardly.
Has it been keeping a job? And if it's been keeping a job, what is it that's been the deciding factor of you leaving a job?
Well, for me to keep a job, I gotta like it for one thing. I gotta really have some good people that I can talk to, my coworkers, and being like I have now.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to my coworkers, and they can help me. But when you don't have that, I don't have much at work.
So you've got to enjoy your work.
Yeah, I've got to enjoy it. I've got to know how to do it. I mean,
You've got to understand what's expected of you.
Right. Yeah.
What are your bosses?
Yeah, they've got to give specific instructions for me. They got to make themselves very clear. There's got to be communication, and my communication skills that's what makes it rough for me, is the communication from me, because I can't put into words some things that are just depending on how I feel about it. I can't express myself into words. I just can't get my brain to turn and say, this is the way it is. My brain, I can't express what's on the inside. I can't get it to come out
So
on certain things.
Right.
And that is very hard for me.
So when a boss comes to you and tells you what he or she is expecting of you, is that ever an issue?
Can be and has been.
Okay. Have you ever left a job because of how a boss?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So, St. Gabriel, welcome in. I didn't even notice you came in. I apologize. When a boss comes to you, if they come to you and say, Logan, go do XYZ.
Depends on how you come at me. If you're asking me to do it, I'll put effort into doing it. But if you're going to come out and tell me and jump down my throat and tell me, if you come across rough with me, then I won't do it. I have a harder time. I will do it, but it'll be a hard thing for me to do. I'll do it, but it'll be tougher on me on how to do it, because with me, it's all how you come across with me. If you're nice with me and you're easygoing, I'll respond better. If you ask me to do something, I'll respond in a good, better way. But if you're just going to come at me and tell me, hey, you are going to do this, you might have some problems. That's where the problem's at.
Right.
It's how you express yourself toward me. If we jump right down my throat, then I'm going to take longer to do it.
Okay. Now, you work in the agricultural business.
Yes, I do.
And you shine. You absolutely shine.
Thank you.
At your job. And where you are now, you are coming up on your 6-year anniversary, are you not?
Yes, 6 years November.
And he works at the Seven Rivers Livestock auction in Emmett, Idaho. And he has been there, like we said, he's coming up on his 6-year anniversary. And he is one of the top employees there. He is absolutely, he gives 110% every week. He knows what needs to be done before most of the people there even realize it's something that needs to be done. He's already got it done most of the time. He is now working in the maintenance of the facility, as well as working in tagging and other positions on sale day.
Mm-hmm.
And people are sitting up and taking notice of the work that he does. And now you know that on sale day, sometimes if it's a big sale,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
occasionally there's not time to stop and say, Logan, will you please go and do?
Right. Right.
Sometimes if it's an emergency situation, they are going to come and say, Logan, go do.
Yeah.
And it's going to come across gruff, rough.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the cowboy world is rough and tough.
Yes, it is.
And it might come across rough. So how do you handle that? And knowing that occasionally things aren't going to come across soft and kind.
In that job, I can just go automatically do it. If they say, hey, it needs to be done, I will. I'll just go do it in that case. But
So you do realize that in every line of work,
mm-hmm.
there are times when that same thing happens.
Yes, I do.
And it's not intentional to
No.
be mean.
Right.
So, and I'm just asking, playing the devil's advocate situation here.
Okay.
So on any job, would
Mhm.
it not be fair to say that a boss should be able to come up to you and say, I need you to go and do this, or Logan, go do this, with it
Mhm.
not being taken as being mean, rough, and tough, and just being telling you what needs to be done?
Yeah, it's possible. Like I say, I'll just go do it.
So, but in the past, on any of your jobs that you've held,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a source of contention where it's caused you to leave the job,
Mm-hmm.
or it's also caused you to get fired because you have
Right. Yes.
reacted in anger
Mhm.
over the way that
Mhm.
they have approached you.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have also matured a lot, and learning about your diagnosis
Mhm.
has helped you a
Yes.
lot.
Yes. I don't.
But-
I'm not near as bad now as I used to.
Right. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, I just, this is just some of the things that not knowing your diagnosis can affect
Mm-hmm.
a person in their entire life. And you just recently turned
53.
53. And for 50 years, you didn't even know your diagnosis.
No, I didn't know what I had. I knew I had something, but I didn't know. And I just growing up, I just grew up. I mean, I knew something was there. I knew I was slower than the other kids, doing things different. And I always, it's been hard all these years. But now that I know what I've got, we need to find out what each thing is and how to treat and how to go about
Learn coping skills.
coping skills, yes, and dealing with the issues.
Right.
And that's what we've been doing as a couple for the last.
We've been together for
It's been
13 years.
We've been married 10, but
Yeah.
this has been the last 5 or 7 for this diagnosis.
Well, you've had the diagnosis for about 3.
I thought it was longer than that.
It's been about 3 years you've had the diagnosis.
Okay.
But I've known that you had autism since we got back together. I knew it, but I didn't know about the other diagnoses until 3 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The reason I say that I knew about the diagnoses is because I used to work as a developmental therapy technician, and I worked with children and adults who have autism and other developmental disabilities.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to learn about the different aspects of autism. And I saw so much of it in Logan when we found each other again in 2010, 2011. And so what was it like for you when you got your diagnosis after all these years? How hard was that, first of all, to be willing to go through all that testing, and then second of all, to learn the diagnoses and come to terms with that?
It was rough at first. I mean, we've been needing to know what to deal with for so long, and then finding out, it was relief, but then it had its own, all on its own. How do we deal with it, from that? And it just had its own.
Was it devastating to you at all?
A little bit, possibly, yes. It was. Because I knew something was there, but I didn't particularly know it was this particular thing. But it's just.
How has getting the diagnosis helped you?
I'd say I don't have to. I know now what I'm dealing with, and it's because I can head it head on. I don't have this blind spot not knowing what it is. I know now what it is. We can face it head on and take it on head like a football player, right?
Do you feel like before you got the diagnosis that you had to try really, really, really hard to fit in?
Yes.
Now that you have the diagnosis, do you feel like you have to still try so hard?
I still try, but I don't to fit in, but it's not as hard now because I know what it is.
You feel like you can be yourself more?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Sure can.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, there is a huge, huge difference between being the mother of an autistic person and being the wife of an autistic person. It's huge. Being the mother of an autistic person, you deal with, did I cause this? Is it in my genes? Was it something that I did as far as, was it the vaccinations? Was it something I fed my child? Or was it, all these questions that you ask yourself as a mother. And then you look at, well, is there something that I could have done better with my child's diet to help with it? Or, all of these other questions that you have and that you ask, and, you have a lot more tools as a parent in your tool belt because you can get the diagnosis as early as possible. As a spouse, you don't have the tools that you have as a parent. You also don't have the same relationship as a neurotypical couple. There is the connection. You do have a connection, but you don't have the same emotional connection that a typical husband-wife has.
Right.
There is a different maturity level. There's a different attention span. There's a different sense of responsibility. Things are not done in, you know, every autistic person is different. There are some autistic people who are very organized, who are very, very scheduled, very able to accomplish everything that they need to accomplish when it needs to be accomplished. There are other people who are very scattered and they cannot regulate themselves. They cannot stick to a schedule, even though a schedule is exactly what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan is someone who really, really needs a schedule, but cannot stick to a schedule. No matter how hard I try to formulate a schedule and a routine, I cannot get him to stick to a schedule or a routine. Our place is utter chaos, and being disabled myself physically, I can't do a lot of the stuff that needs to be done. And even if I did do the stuff that needs to be done, Logan isn't able to, whether it's mentally able to regulate himself or what, I'm not sure, but there's no I don't even know how to put it. It's not there to help me maintain it. And so our utter chaos stays in utter chaos, whether I work on cleaning it or not. And so it's very difficult to have, make sure that the trash is taken care of, make sure that the yard is kept up, make sure that the house is kept up, and work together on it when I can't keep him on a schedule in helping me keep up on these things. And so is really hard. And having a serious conversation turn into a blow up is hard, because as I was talking with Ronson, everything is very concrete. Everything is black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And getting Logan to hear any other point of view other than his own is very, very difficult. But there's more. I'm going to go ahead and bring Ronson up here to talk with us now.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
I was just gonna say that can be part of ADD, ADHD, where even the smallest things seem enormous, and then we get to the point where we're so overwhelmed that we shut down and don't get any of it done.
Right. Yeah. Let's not step on the computer there, kiddo. One of the other things that we have unique to our family is that Logan is not Ronson's dad. And he's the stepdad. And Ronson grew up without a dad. And so Ronson has always felt very possessive of me. Logan came in feeling very possessive of me. And so we had a whole 2 bucks fighting over the same dough, basically. And we went through this whole period of time where they were butting heads constantly. So you have 2 autistic people with very, very concrete opinions and ideas. Ronson has very strong opinions, and he's a pretty good communicator for the most part. And then you have
Sometimes.
Logan. Yeah. And then you have Logan, who has very strong opinions, but has difficulty communicating. And both of them trying to say sometimes the exact same thing, but in 2 totally different ways, and they can't come together. And to get the 2 of them on the same page has been very difficult. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't even know that we're, even now, oftentimes we're still not on the same page, I feel like.
I agree.
True.
And me being mom, wife, neurotypical, stuck in the middle, I oftentimes have Ronson on one side. What does he even mean by this? What is he saying? Well, he's saying this, and he's telling me this and this and this, and what do I say? And then I have Logan on the other side saying, well, I told him this, this, and this, and he's saying this, or he's not even responding to me, and he's doing this, and I'm going, would you 2 just talk to each other? Would you 2 please just talk to each other? I'm here in the middle and trying to decipher for you 2. Why can't you 2 just talk?
Leonard over here.
And it can become very frustrating being mom and wife. And sometimes I don't know, who do I owe my allegiance to? I've been mom a whole lot longer than I've been wife, but I made a commitment to be wife. And I live with Logan. And
It can be tough.
You know, so sometimes it can be a real challenge to be both. And so what has been where you 2 are both autistic, both on very similar levels. You 2 both have very similar personalities. What has been the toughest thing for the 2 of you to become friends? Who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
I don't care. I don't know. Probably just difficulty communicating.
I think so, yeah.
Because sometimes the way we communicate that is like so much different than the other's way of communicating that I think both of us probably deal with, like, not even knowing how to take it or respond, or yeah. I think that's the biggest barrier.
Yeah, it is.
So have you guys considered maybe asking each other questions about what you're trying to say, maybe eliciting more information from each other so you guys can figure it out instead of running to mom?
Oh yeah, we've considered it.
But have you
Yeah,
acted on that?
I try not to drag you in the middle of things as much, but you know,
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I think sometimes it's the anxiety too that I'll say something wrong and then I'll set Logan off and he'll be upset and then be a whole thing, whether it would be or not.
Well, Logan does get upset pretty easy. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. Depends on circumstance. That's how I look at it. Depends on what has been said and how it's gone about it, you know. But yeah, we communicate here pretty good here lately. But it was trouble in the first between the two of us, I think. But we've grown together for the last 13 years, and we're starting to kind of know what the other is thinking. I think, you know, it's gotten better between me and Ronson. It really has. We've got a stronger bond now, son, than what we've ever had, and it'll just continue to get better. I think. I mean, we've never.
Yeah.
It was tough not knowing how the other one. In the beginning, it was not. We didn't know each other, and it was just kind of. How do I want to put it? It's just kind of. I don't want to say being the he bull of the woods, you know, the pasture, butting heads and locking horns, so to speak, and trying to push the other and see what. I don't think it's been that necessarily. A lot of it maybe has, but it's not. I don't want to go that far as to say, you know. But we've learned from each other a lot, and we've gotten better at knowing what the other one has, you know, with my diagnosis now.
Well,
Right.
learning each other's communication style has helped, but there's still a lot of learning.
Yeah.
And you guys both have anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that does interfere with your communication with each other. Being afraid that the other one's going to misunderstand. And
Right.
But the thing you have to understand is that you'll never know if you don't step out and try.
Right, exactly.
And I don't mind running interference as long as you guys have at least made an effort to understand each other first.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You got to make the effort, or you'll never know if you've understood each other.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what has been the best thing about being father-son, having a father-son relationship? I know you're not, it's stepson, stepfather, but a father-son relationship.
Yeah.
You go first.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been great for me. I mean, I've always wanted a family of my own, kids of my own, and it was hard in the beginning, but we're growing closer. We're knowing each other. We're having more in common now, and we've got it's just getting better for me. I mean, I know we haven't gone fishing yet, or hunting, or camping, but we're working on it. With my new schedule, it's kind of. But this fall, I think we're going to be able to lighten up and do some things. So. I mean,
Yeah.
it's coming. I mean, because the big runs, I don't think we're going to get them this fall. I don't really think, but that's something else. But
What about you, Ronson?
Um. Oh, it's been nice to have someone to do, different things with. Like, I know your disability's been, you've been improving and everything, but there's still things that, you can't do. And it's nice to have someone else to do them with.
yeah,
Yeah. Do you think that having both of you having autism has given you guys a special bond, a special connection?
Maybe. I don't know.
it's been a challenge, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It has been a challenge. I mean, I think it's I personally feel like it's kind of neat that we're going through this, being, how many more times are you going to find somebody else in a relationship more like ours? You don't hear about that much today, this day and age. I mean, I haven't found anybody else around there going through it, but
Yeah.
Do you feel like because you both have autism and ADHD that you understand each other a little bit better?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, we're getting there.
All right. All right. Well, that's pretty much all that I have. Is there anything else that you would like to say about having autism, either from childhood and knowing from a young age and transitioning to adulthood, or being an adult with autism, Ronson? Anything that you want people to know and understand about people with autism?
I don't know. I guess mostly just that it's called the the autism spectrum for a reason. Like, there's people that might have very few issues, and then there's those that are autistic that can't care for themselves and are nonverbal, and then there's everything in between.
Right.
So I think it's important to understand that, just because someone says, "Hey, I'm autistic," doesn't mean that they need you to hold their hand and take them to the bathroom or something like that. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
but you just have to kind of figure out, what they need, and go from there, and try not to put them in a box, I guess.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't judge. Don't
Right.
don't have preconceived ideas of autism. How about you, Logan? Anything that you want people to understand or to know about someone receiving a late diagnosis like you've had?
Just don't treat us any different. Don't stop treating us, different. And just because you found out that we have it, I don't want you to treat me any different than what you did before. Unless, don't feel sorry for us. I mean, for people like us that have it. I mean,
Absolutely.
I guess I'm always, because I have had a job with the handicapped and the disabled, the less fortunate. There's always somebody more or less fortunate than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to try to step up and handle it. As Christians, we're obligated to step up and help them over somebody else. But that's, and I've always been part of one. I've always known something was wrong with me, and I've always put myself in the same category as labeled myself as not disabled, but along the same lines as those people that are. I'm right there. I'm one of them. I've always lived my life knowing that I'm one of them, to know so I can step up and help those individuals better.
Okay.
I've always, but please just don't stop treating us any different. Treat us the same as you would anybody else, or how you have yourself treated, how you would want to be the golden rule, I guess. But
That's good. I
I
appreciate that.
don't be different around us. Don't treat us the same. Just keep on going, living life the way we are, and
The diagnosis doesn't change the person inside.
Exactly. We're not going to change.
Yeah, it can be a lot of times those of us that are not neurodivergent are a lot of times we don't even realize we're masking. We're trying to appear normal, and even when we don't realize it can be extremely draining.
Right.
So there's, it can be really helpful to be able to just remove ourselves from a situation and take a minute and then come back.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on the masking, because I had wanted to bring that up and I forgot. Can you really quickly just explain what masking is and kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think some of it just stems from, especially those of us that grew up in a time when autism and other neurodivergencies were less understood. We spend times around our peers, and we're not typically good at social interactions, reading body language, that sort of thing. And so as a coping mechanism, we sort of tend to mimic what we see, almost like a monkey see monkey do sort of thing. Not that we're monkeys, but just
Right.
and so we see how quote unquote normal neurotypical people behave, and then we tend to adopt those mannerisms, and being around it enough, and especially like for Logan, where he didn't realize until recently exactly what sort of problems he had or whatever, and understand them like over so much time, it's really easy to just develop that as sort of like your personality, like you are, instead of just being genuine, not that you're not being genuine, instead of just being yourself, you try to be this ideal self, like what you believe is quote unquote normal, or what others want you to be.
Right.
So
and like I said, there's a lot of times we don't realize we're doing it, and even though we might not realize it, it can be really draining, which is why it can be really helpful to just take a break, even a 5-minute break away from a crowd, if we're having anxiety, or that can be the difference between having a good day and having a bad day, or being okay and having a meltdown, or something like that.
Right. So what what happens when you take off that mask, or if you have when we're like at a store and you become so overwhelmed and that mask comes off?
I
What
think
can
it can
happen?
affect different people different ways, but like for myself, if I get kind of overwhelmed, and this is not necessarily just the masking, but we can just kind of shut down.
What do you mean by
To
shut
where you
down?
just shut down, like you just can't deal with anything. Like you just want to sit wherever you happen to be and just completely disconnect.
So
Almost dissociate.
stop talking, stop
Stop
responding.
talking, stop responding, try your best not to listen to any of the input, like, anything you're hearing, anything you're seeing. Maybe close your eyes, put some earbuds in with nothing playing, or earplugs, cover your ears, go to a dark room. It's just, you just sort of like, it's almost like a
Is this
computer going
when
into sleep mode. You just can't function anymore.
is this when you might see or hear the kids in the store full throat screaming, or see like an adult autistic kid? I say kid, but you know what I mean. When you might see a full-sized adult autistic person jumping up and down, vocalizing and flapping, would that be?
It could be.
Or is that stemming?
It could be both, honestly, I think. Definitely stimming is definitely another coping mechanism that a lot of neurodivergent people have. That could be shaking your leg, or that could be scratching your face repeatedly, or it could be making a noise, or it could be anything really, just a repetitive. Something repetitive.
Something repetitive that's calming.
Yeah.
I know for you have a habit of bouncing your leg.
Yeah, sometimes. I used to a lot. Yeah, I used to a lot. I feel like I don't so much anymore. But
No, I've noticed that you have stopped that a lot. Now for Logan, he has a habit. He crosses his arm, and I can't do it. I don't know how he does it, but he gets his thumb bouncing. He bounces his thumb. There he goes. He can get. Yep, and that's his movement that he does. He gets that. I don't know how he can get that thumb moving as fast as he does, but he gets that thumb bouncing and moving so fast. And oh my gosh, I couldn't do it if I tried. But
lots of practice.
but that's his coping. That's his self-soothing thing. And for those of us that are neurotypical, it can drive us insane. But at the same time, I'd rather you did that than headbanging or something that's self-injurious.
Right.
Or the flapping. When you were younger, you would, if you got excited, you would flap. You would jump in the stores and flap and squeal. Not very often, but there were times when you would get really, really, really excited and you would do that.
Yeah, I still occasionally, when I'm by myself, get real excited and say ridiculous things, or get loud, or get up to walk to the kitchen and I run there because I'm just like so wound up. But yeah, definitely a lot less than A lot less
you-
than when I was a child.
Yeah. You had some favorite sayings that you would get hooked on too. Do you remember any
Yeah.
of them? What were your
Oh, oh, like blub blub chicken rub.
Yeah. You got hooked on that and you would say that and say it and say it. Everything was blub blub chicken rub. If you were asked a question, blub blub chicken rub. What do you want for dinner? Blub blub chicken rub. Did you get your homework done? Blub blub chicken rub. It was everything was blub blub chicken rub. And
Yeah.
another one. Then when you got off of that, it was applesauce. Everything was applesauce. But those are just things that can be part of autism, and they're little endearing things. If you learn to embrace them rather than scorn them. So,
Right.
we have been going for almost 2 hours. And so really quick, if anybody is in the chat who has any questions for either Ronson or Logan or myself, please type those in quick and we will try to get to those. I don't want to go for more than about another 10 minutes if possible. So please put your questions in quickly and we'll try to get to those.
St. Gabriel had a question. He said, I have always had trouble with crowds of people like busy shops, things like that. I have massive anxiety. How is Logan with crowds?
Okay. I have a hard time with them. Yeah, unless they're an auction crowd or something that I'm used to now. I don't like big crowds a lot. It depends on, like, there's certain sporting events that I won't go.
Rodeos you'll go to.
Rodeos I'll go because that's my
niche,
who I am. But I do have hard time going with a lot of crowds and stuff. I don't like a big crowd. I never have, unless it's, like I say, rodeo or cattle auctions or some kind of auction or something.
Yeah. I have an extremely difficult time getting Logan to leave the house. He absolutely does not like to leave the house to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get him to go to town, even to go to the grocery store. If we go anywhere, it usually ends up with Logan being very angry and snapping at me, taking it out on me.
I don't really mean it that way, but it just comes across that way.
Right.
It's just that way.
Let's see, just going back in the chat. I think Logan or Ronson, you can click on any questions you see, and it should put it up on the screen if you find anything before I do.
No.
It won't let you?
No, because I'm technically not logged into StreamYard, and I'm not a moderator or a whatever, a producer or whatever. Like,
oh, okay.
I could answer that too. I typically have difficulties with crowds more so when I feel like I'm expected to interact with them. I tend to not have as much trouble when, like I've been to Las Vegas and went to the Las Vegas Strip. I didn't have much trouble with that because I, wasn't expected to interact with anybody. Or like Walt Disney World, but it's when I'm going to be in a group where I'm going to feel pressured to interact, whether there's actually any pressure or not. Like, I feel that pressure to interact with them, and that gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
So. That's mine too. That's what I should have said. Is the same thing. I guess that's what mine is too.
Yeah. I can understand that. being expected to make conversation and communicate with people that either A, you don't know, or B, you don't have anything in common with.
Right. Because I'm usually more than happy to sit and observe conversation. Like, I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Just listen to a conversation in a group, but I don't like feeling pressured. And it's not that I won't interact if it's people I like or people I know. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then also I was gonna add that we didn't really talk about is that I'm also hard of hearing, and so that compounded so many things growing up with like school, not being able to hear the teacher, not hearing,
Misunderstanding.
yeah, misunderstanding because I've misheard someone or just flat not heard them at all. Um, almost sort of masking with that too, just like
Mm-hmm.
pretending I heard them instead of asking them to repeat themselves or whatever. That definitely didn't help things. And there was a few years that I had hearing aids in school, and then there was quite a few years that I didn't have hearing aids because we couldn't
Right.
afford them. And
A question for Ronson. Denise.
Go ahead.
I got a question for you, Ronson. Are you like me on that where, I'm blind in the left eye, and they always tell me for one sense that's going out, another one steps up, like my hearing is better than my vision. One of them comes up and steps up and takes. Do you have anything like that going on for you?
Well, I mean, my vision, obviously, I wear glasses. My vision's not perfect. It's not horrible, but it's not perfect.
Right.
But I think the closest thing to that is probably reading lips, especially with people that are hard to understand, like Megan, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's my community support worker, and she just has she's soft spoken and has a fairly high pitched voice, which the higher pitches, it's kind of in that section of pitches that I don't hear as well. And
She's very
so
difficult to understand.
she tends to like she'll be like this or like this and talking to me, and I turn to look at her and I'm like, you what now?
Yeah.
So it can be difficult, but yeah, I think that's probably the closest thing I have to like a one sense being. It's not exactly the same, but yeah, I tend to read lips. I've reading subtitles or captioning is like just something I do without thinking about it, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You had a benefit in me growing up because, like I said, the doctors were all saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with him. You're just a doting mom." And I made a very conscious decision to stay home with you your first 4 years of life. And I made the choice. I was fortunate to live in income-based housing. And so the very, very small amount of money that we got from welfare, and I do mean small, allowed me to stay home with you. And I spent countless hours teaching you to speak. And I essentially did speech therapy with you. and teaching you how to form your words and form letters with your mouth, so that you could be able to speak as well as you do. You have very, very little speech impediment from your hearing loss. And people often don't realize that you have a hearing loss because of that. And it took a long time for me to convince doctors that there was a problem because of all the
Right.
time I spent with you. So anyway, well, if there are no other questions, or if you guys don't have any other comments, let's see. I will tell you this. A diagnosis at a late age does not change who you are. It gives you the tools to understand the difficulties that you've had throughout your life, and helps you to know how to be more successful within the limitations that you have, if that helps any at all. Relationships are difficult, and I am so happy that you have your wife and your 2 daughters. That's amazing, and that is awesome, and I'm so happy for you. If you can get tested, if you feel that it could be something there, it's worth it. I think that, Logan, you can attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to be tested.
Oh, no, don't. I'm glad I did. It's one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
It was not an easy decision to get you to make. I spent years convincing you that it was worth getting done.
I think a lot of that's because I was scared to have it done. Scared to find out what was really wrong. And now that I know, it's one of the best decisions. So yeah, don't do what I did. Don't put it off. If you need tested, let's get you tested. I mean, let's get it, because
Right.
you're never going to know what you have if you don't get tested for it. You'll never know.
Was it a sense of relief?
Yes, for me, yes, it was. Yes, it was. Because I'm still in awe of it, really. After all these years being diagnosed, I'm still getting to know it better, but I'm still kind of in awe of what all I am finding out.
Did it feel like you were getting to know yourself all over again?
Yeah. Yep, it does.
So if you have the opportunity, please do get your testing done. And
yes.
Just because you're 30, 40, 50, 60 or 70 years old, if you've been struggling all your life and you don't know why, and any of this is relatable to you, get tested.
Mm-hmm.
Get the answers that you've longed for. It's worth it. Ronson was 15 when he got his testing done, and even that is late for getting testing. That was even late. He should have gotten tested much younger and been able to get services sooner. But we got it done while he was still a child, which has allowed him to get services. Logan, by all rights, should be able to get disability and should be able to get services. But we have gone through years trying to get disability, and they will not allow him disability. They will not allow it. And I don't understand it.
I don't either.
And so now, if anything happened to me before he reaches retirement age, the only income he'll have is from the job that he has right now, which is not enough to support him. And that's because they will not give him the disability that he qualifies for. And it's frustrating. It's a really frustrating row to hoe. I've got to try to find another attorney and reapply again for the 4th time to try to get disability for him.
Yep.
But anyway, I have kept you guys here for over 2 hours, and I appreciate your attentiveness to this. If you came in late, please do go back and watch it. We broke it up into segments. I first talked a little bit about my experience as both a mother and a wife. I talked with Ronson, my son. Then I talked with Logan, and then I brought them in together, and we've been talking as a family. So if you're watching the replay, I really appreciate it. I hope that you gained some insight and some understanding into autism and how it affects a family. We're a blended family, and I really hope that this has been a good experience for everybody. Ronson, I thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us. And Logan, you too. I know this hasn't been an easy conversation for either one of you, but it's important, and I do really, really appreciate your vulnerability. So,
yeah, you're welcome.
All right. And anybody who has more questions after the video, please leave them in the comments section. Please leave us a thumbs up after the video. And I just appreciate you so much. Have a blessed week, and I will see you again next week for Meet Me Monday. Love you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Ronson.
Be safe.